Hey, everybody. Today is another in a series that we're doing where we're talking to a lot of our caregivers. Why would we do this? It's because everything that we've learned about caregiving comes from what our caregivers teach us. Now, oftentimes, what happens is that we will read articles about caregiving, or there's all kinds of books, and sometimes they have really good advice. Oftentimes, we are appalled at some of the things they say. So, I obviously am kind of a curious guy. I ask people a lot of questions, and I've had the real pleasure of caring for Barbara Levin. And through that, I've gotten to know Jerry Levin pretty well. And so one of my ideas was that his story was so unique, not only just being, and we kid about this, but we're not sure that it's not true, that we call him the world's oldest caregiver. He's 97 years old. And but also his life experiences actually prepared him for what he's doing now in being a caregiver. Resilience, resolve, all of the things that he developed throughout his life, he's had to use. Sometimes he's been good at it. Sometimes he's going to share that he needed a little work. So that's what this is about, is kind of sharing this kind of unique experience that Jerry's had in his life and how it prepared him. And then also, once we were in it, and we've been in it now for about 5 years, how he's had to change in order to change with the demands that his wife Barbara now is exhibiting. So we're going to start with a short biography. And because, one of the things I want to remind you all as caregivers is that, one, you actually were a real person and had a life before you became a caregiver. And then also, when caregiving is over, life will go on. So that's a theme. First of all, Jerry, welcome, and thank you for taking your time to come down here and be with us. Okay, we feel honored to have you here. First thing, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? Where's your hometown?
Well, my hometown is Charlotte. I was actually born in Gastonia, but we moved here when I was 6 months old, and from that time on, I lived in Charlotte, went to high school in Charlotte, went all through all the grammar grades in Charlotte, and graduated from Central High School in 1942.
And what was your first job?
Well, I actually, as a kid, I used to work in my dad's store, Levo's. I used to work in there, sweeping, cleaning the windows, dusting off the shoes as a kid. And I learned a lot because I learned a lot from professional fitters who, in those days, they were professional fitters, and that was their profession. And I learned a lot from them, how to handle a customer, how to talk to a customer, and what a customer wanted or needed, how to get it out of them as to what they really wanted to look at or what they wanted to buy.
Was your dad easy to get along with?
Oh yeah, well, I got along with great with my dad. He was a good teacher. He told me one time, well, when he got sick and he had to go for operation, he asked me to drop out of Chapel Hill. I was at Chapel Hill at the time in business school, and I really didn't want to. I really, really did not want to, because when I came back from the service, it was hard for me to get back into the books and compete with the 18-year-olds, as at that time I was 22 years old. So I knew that was going to happen. I said, Dad, if I drop out now, I'll never
come
go
back. Yeah.
I'll never go back. And he said, well, that's okay. I'll be your professor.
Okay.
Well, actually, my dad dropped out of school when he was 16 because he was one of 10 children, and he was the oldest boy, and his family needed money in order to survive. To live. And so
that was during the Depression?
No, that was before. That was well before. But he dropped out, and went to work in a shoe store. And that's where his background came from, was when he was 18 years old, they sent him to Boston as an individual to buy for the store, which the store was the largest Globe shoe store in Charleston, South Carolina. And he learned there, he learned styles and what was good and what was not good. And then when I came back and started over, he said, you know, when he got out of the hospital and came back to the store, he says, you're going to take over the children's shoes. You'll buy for the children's shoes. I said, that's okay, that's fine. Well, what happened was that all of a sudden I told you that we didn't have tap and ballet shoes. Well, I had my children's shoe department was one of the best in the city, and we were busy always. And so what happened was that I had customers come in and ask for tap and ballet shoes, and I had to send them to Belk's across the street.
And about killed you, didn't
it? That hurt. I just couldn't stand that. So I went to my dad and I says, look, why is it that we don't have children's tap and ballet shoes either? I just didn't feel like fooling. Well, he had Boy Scouts, hiking shoes, boots, everything, riding equipment, riding boots, not equipment, boots. So he said, I just didn't want to do it. I mean, I just didn't feel like I had the time. So he said, you do whatever you have to do. So I went to work and I put in tap and ballet shoes thinking I only have to have a tap shoe and a ballet shoe. Well, lo and behold, you have to have black shoes, white shoes, pink shoes. And
y'all can tell the man is a very good shoe salesman. Okay. One day we were in the office and I was with another patient and a woman was walking down the hallway, and we obviously like real thin rubber soles and not in a cloth top because the patients can feel the rug better. And Jerry said, hey, Doc, come here. He said, we can get those shoes for you. Okay, so he's always selling shoes. All right, the first thing I want to talk about, Jerry, is you graduated from high school in 1942.
Right.
And really, the first real job you had was in the Army Air Corps.
Yeah, well,
how old were you when you went in?
Citadel. I went to Citadel, and I was in Citadel at the beginning of the war. In 1942, I went to Citadel, and it was in 1943, the beginning, and I asked my dad to check and see if I was going to get drafted. Well, he asked the wrong person. I said, oh, yes, he's going to get drafted in April or May. I said, Dad, come get me out of here. No sense in me wasting my time here. I'm going to volunteer for the Air Force. So he did. He came and got me. Well, we were here in town, and the chairman of the draft board was walking down the street, and he saw us, and he knew my dad, and he knew me. He came flying across the street and said, what is he doing here? He's a Citadel. Dad said, no, he just dropped out because he's going to get drafted. He says, forget that.
You didn't get the word, did you?
We don't draft anybody out of Citadel. So anyhow, I didn't. With that, I said, well, forget it.
I'm not going. All right. Tell us now a little bit about your experience. You ended up, where did you go to basic training?
We went down to Mississippi.
All right. And you ended up in Italy.
Yeah, well, we ended up going. Well, first I went to El Paso for training, but we went to Salt Lake City to join as a crew, and then from Salt Lake City, the crew went down to there for 3 months to train ourselves as to what our functions were and what
was your function?
I was a plane engineer. I took care of the plane, and I was the right arm of the pilot. Like I say, there's 3 things you had to have to take a B-24 off: was the pilot, co-pilot, and the flight engineer. If you didn't have those 2, you couldn't take a B-24 off the ground.
All right. So the experiences, you ended up in Italy. Tell us about that. Y'all were flying sorties over like Anzio and all that stuff. Were you there then?
Yeah, well, we know Nanzio's in Italy, but that was before we came in as replacements. We were the first replacements for our group, and we were the first ones to bring a plane in, which they needed. They were shot up pretty bad. But what we did is that we joined the group, and we never really flew the same plane again. We flew different planes because they just assign you at the briefing where you're supposed to go. And we went over Palesti oil fields, which was the hottest target in Europe. It had only 235 anti-aircraft guns there. And it was like going through a steel sheet of steel because they were up there at different varieties. And then when you got out of there, they had the Germans, the aces, which was yellow-nosed aces. They all had 10 kills. And they were waiting for the city to get cripples. If you lost an engine, couldn't stay in formation, they were right on top of you.
Wow, what a story. All right, so tell us about when you were there, 1945, in April of 1945, and it was VE Day. Where were you, and what was that like?
Now, when that happened, I was home.
Okay.
I was in Charlotte.
All right.
I had just finished 50 combat missions, and therefore they let you go home after 50. And now they say 35, but the 50, it was the number that I had to reach, and I did. And when I did reach it, the commanding officer of our group, Colonel Gordon, he came out there to the plane as I was leaving and asked me if I would stay and just be his flight engineer. No, didn't have to fly with anybody else but him. My answer was, Colonel, do I have to fly combat with you too? And he said, yes. And I said, I will take my rest leave at home.
I'm going home. I've been shot at enough.
I'm going home.
All right. So tell us, I want just a little bit about the experience that you had with Lebo's in downtown. And tell us a little bit about when you started realizing that you could sell more cowboy boots downstairs than you could shoes upstairs.
What happened is that we had the opportunity to buy another building 2 doors up. There was a 3-story building, and we went and we bought that building, and then we gutted it and put $125,000 in that building. And
wow, that's a lot of money during those days.
Like $1.25 million today. Yeah. But the basement, I was afraid to finish it because I was afraid I'd run out of money. So I didn't finish it, and it had the earth walls, and my sales associates were told not to go down, not to take a customer down there. But we kept our boots and heavy goods downstairs, and rather than running it up and down and running it back, he said, "Come on with me." And I used to told you not to do that. I'd catch him with that, and I'd raise hell, but it didn't make any difference. So I decided one day, we just got to open it up. And then I put in English riding clothes, which was something I didn't know a lot about, but I learned a lot about. And we started selling those out of the boxes before we even got on a hanger. And so that led me into opening up the bottom. We call it Lebo's Corral. And with that, we ended up selling saddles downstairs, saddles at Lebo's, and bridles. And
have you ever been on a horse?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't want to.
Oh, yeah. But that's how we got I named it, We Sell Everything But the Horse.
All right. So I want you to tell us, first of all, I want y'all, this man, 97 years old, he's got quite a memory on him. He's pulling out names, Colonel Gordon. He's pulling out some stuff that this is impressive. I want you to tell me the first time you ever laid eyes on Barbara.
Oh, my God. It turned out that her Aunt Minnie was a wonderful woman, and I knew her. And she called my sister and said, "Would you take my niece out? She's here from college." And at that time, there was a lot of, I was 27 years old, but before that, every time the girl come into town, they called and said, "Would you take her out?" And I said, "Oh, not another one, Barbara." I mean, Doris, my sister. And so
you were the designated dump job.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
So I said, "Well, okay, I'll do it for Aunt Minnie." So I took Barbara out, and then we went dancing, and everything seemed to gel pretty good. And she liked it, and
you didn't mind.
No, she was a pretty girl.
I want to show this. It is a picture that we have of Jerry and Barbara when they got married, and then on the right hand side to y'all is a picture of Sergeant Levin when he was awarded the Oak Leaf Cluster and the Army Air Medal, which is amazing for someone who was 19, and then he became, when he was 20 years old, he had his 20th birthday in the combat zone. All right, I want to talk a little bit about where you're living now. Tell us about your situation. Where do you live?
Well, we lived here in town for 53 years at 5019 Carmel Park Drive. Wonderful. It was great. We raised our 4 kids there. We had every luxury you could think of. I mean, by luxury, I'm talking about entertaining. My kids brought their friends over there, and I never mind how many kids were in the house or downstairs where we had a pool table and ping pong table and music, and they could dance. And and we pooled right outside. So that house served us well. Well, what happened naturally is that when my kids all got married, there was no longer a need for that bigger house. We had a 6-bedroom house, and we lived. We really enjoyed it, but then a lot of our friends passed away. That was another reason why that we went to start looking for a retirement home or where to go. And we decided that for sociability, that we needed more sociability with people that of our age and people that had common interests. So we started looking around, and that's when we decided on Cypress. And Cypress is a wonderful place. They have a wonderful dining room. It's a 5-star, really. And we really enjoyed it. But only this pandemic, this last 2 years, has put a squelch on a lot of sociability.
We're going to talk about that. One of the things that we have to deal with a lot in the clinic is what I call the decision. And that decision is, when do you leave your home that you've been living in? This is when 2 couples, when this is a couple. Now, this is not single. We'll talk about the single. But when do you leave that home and go into a facility? What are the things that are the triggers for it? One of the things that is really important on this is that as we age, the sociability factor, if we're single and we are living in a home by ourselves and we have very little social interaction with other people, we are going to decline. Some of the times the patients will tell me, they'll say, "Dr. Edwards, I don't want to leave all the stuff that I have. I've got all my furniture. I've got all these rugs. I've got all this stuff." And so sometimes I'm not very successful at getting people to change on that. But the one thing that usually that triggers are that you have an empty nest, the house is too big, you're getting ready to change anyway. Why don't we go to a place with multi-levels? The second of all is that the wife says, "I'm tired of cooking. I'm tired of cooking 3 meals a day, and I just want to have a little bit more support." Also, the fear of the future. having what are uneven couples is what they call them. That means one person is whole and one person has downticked a little bit in their cognition. And so the decision is made that we want to make sure that I have a place for, I want to know that I have some support and maybe different levels if we ever need that. Now, if you have a lot of sociability and you're not tired of cooking and you love living in that house, then oftentimes there's no need to leave. Another thing is that we can make any situation work if we have the resources. Now, if we don't have the resources, oftentimes it is cheaper to be in a facility than it is to bring nurses and caregivers in over an extended period of time. So it's multifactorial. One of the dangers is that the patients that are uneven, the couples that are uneven, the main caregiver has the impression that if I can just get to the Cypress or I can just get to Matthews Glen or one of these facilities, everything is going to change. Well, nothing changes. Okay, that you are still in the apartment or still in the facility with the patient and you're still caring for them. So I always, so we spend a lot of time going over all the aspects of this and work with you on whether or not we think your situation is good for moving or not. Jerry, I want you to tell us, you're going along, y'all are at the Cypress, you've been there now for
4.5 years.
Okay. What is the first thing that you saw with Barbara that all of a sudden you said, I might have a problem here? What was the first thing you saw?
We were at Cypress for, I'd say, at least 3 years before anything really developed. I mean, the thing is that memory. And I hope someday they can find a cure that'll bring back the memory that you have or changes your brains or whatever. But it was just her general headaches. She had headaches and she couldn't remember certain things. And she was complaining that she just couldn't remember. And then too, sometimes her moods got a little bit tougher.
One of the things usually in our there are two major types. There are 5 major types of dementia. The most common, of course, is Alzheimer's. But as you age and get up into your late 80s and early 90s, it's much more common to have a vascular component to the dementia. And having a vascular component, the presentation of the dementia changes. So Barbara is 93. So
94 in May.
And so her presentation has been just a little bit different. We're not going to go into all of the details on this, but vascular dementia, it progresses in a different way. It stays for long periods of time on one plane and then it drops. So you get a stair-step decline as opposed to more of a progressive, unyielding slope to that line. The second thing that's very strange, but oftentimes language is spared. If you ask Barbara Levin a question, she will answer you just like she can speak, just like she always has. Okay, there's no pause, there's nothing. Now you ask her what she has for lunch today, she may not be come up. You ask her what she had at her wedding reception, and she can tell you exactly what happened there. So her long-term memories are preserved. Now, another thing that is very unusual, so language is spared, and then also anxiety and apathy and depression are common in vascular dementia. So a lot of our patients, the story will be, gosh, we were going along, doing fine, and then all of a sudden she didn't want to do anything, or he stopped mowing the lawn or stopped wanting to do anything. That apathy is actually, and the depression is part of the disease process. A little bit more common in vascular dementia than it would be in other forms. So here we have the first indication that someone has short-term memory issues. And so what we get is repetitive questions and rapid forgetting. Now, I want to ask Jerry, right now, you all have someone that kind of comes in once a week or once every 2 weeks, twice a week, but you are the principal caregiver for Barbara.
You might say that.
Okay.
I do all the cook. I mean, like the meals. And,
every meal, you plan every meal.
Yeah.
Okay. And you'll have some of it delivered, and other times you'll shop and you'll cook other things.
Most of the time delivered. We go to the dining room now. They opened the dining room.
They've reopened it.
Yeah, they've reopened it, so we get the chance to go in there. And she likes that. She likes that.
All right. So you can imagine being 97 years old and planning every meal and having to think about that. Now, part of that is keeping him young. And part of that's keeping him in the road. But tell me, what was the hardest thing that you've had to do as far as you taking care of Barbara in your apartment at the Cypress? What has been the hardest thing, and what changes have you had to make in your dealings with her?
Well, just to think about it, really, it hasn't been that difficult. But she does have moods, and sometimes crying, she'd cry, but it's just her memory. She can't remember, or she gets frustrated. That's when she cries, is when she gets frustrated. And then I try to smooth that over the best I know how to do it.
How's that go when you try to smooth it over?
Well, we get by.
Now tell us, now one of the things that you told me is that I had to change. I feel like that, okay, so here's the thing. We're dealing with a problem solver here, okay? You don't build a business and every day solve the problems that a business presents to you without being able to solve problems. Now, when problem solvers become caregivers, things change, right? And there's three options for this. The first is that the problem solver will say, I can figure this out. I can come up with a shred of evidence. I'm going to go online. I'm going to talk to everybody I know. Certainly, there's a way that I can solve the problem of my wife losing her short-term memory. He will beat himself up. He'll knock himself over. He will be bloodied, but he is going to figure it out. Now then, when he can't figure it out, what he's going to do is create a problem he can solve. That is around this problem. It might be caregivers, it might be whatever it is. And then the third thing, of course, is that you either decide, all right, I've got to change in order to adapt to my present situation, or a lot of my problem solvers, my successful men, will emotionally withdraw. And one of the reason why this man is sitting here is that he is not emotionally withdrawn. He is with her all the time. Now, one of the things I want to talk about here is that every patient that has memory issues has a basic fear, or two basic fears. One is that if anyone knows how bad I'm doing and what my memory is doing to my brain, or why I'm doing this, I'm going to be alone, and I'm going to be in a place I can't get out of. This is the source of what Jerry's going to tell us, but that's the source of the tension between the caregiver and the patient. So, Jerry, let's say that Barbara is having one of her spells, and you're coming in, and you're going to try to smooth this over. And you make a couple of suggestions on what she might do to help her memory. What happens when you do that?
Well, first thing you have to have patience. You have to make yourself be patient and understand that where she's coming from. So the best thing you can do is try to ease it down, try to calm it down to where she can come back, sort of get back to being herself. And she might not understand entirely what the problem is, but she can be satisfied that we're working it together.
I think this is really important because remember, the basic fear is that I'm going to be alone and I'm going to be in a place I can't get out of. Now, let's look at both sides of this. On the caregiver side, when they're making suggestions to how we might deal with this or how we might do better, or look, Barbara, you could do this or you could do that. Oftentimes, you're going to get anger back. You're going to get a little bit of irrationality. You're going to get irritability, and you're going to get some anger. And it's really hard to deal with that because what you're saying with the words that you're verbalizing is, I love you and I want to help. On the other side of that is this patient who has this fear. And when you go near this fear, okay, they know that they're impaired. And when you go near that feeling of, I know that you're not remembering, I know that you're struggling, they are doing everything they can to keep their lives in the road. They're trying to keep this semblance of sanity and trying to make sure everybody knows they're all right. So when you go near that, they're going to say, you stay away from me. You stay away from this fear. I don't want you to know this. I don't want you to have anything to do with it. And so then here you are in this slice where you get all this anger and this recoil. Now, we spend a lot of time on this because it can recur often over and over during the day. So how do we do it? And Jerry has just given us that answer, okay? He says, we're going to ease this down. And then what they want more than anything is the affirmation to know that whatever happens, I'm here with you, I love you, and we're going to take care of this together. We are a team. We are going to be okay. But what happens with the caregiver will say, well, I tried my best. I'm out of here. She's being terrible. And then they feel like when she leaves or he leaves, then the patient says, oh my God, this is how I'm going to feel because I feel abandoned now. So understand about this chemistry. Both sides are at their best. The caregiver is saying, I love you. And the patient is saying, please, I am trying my absolute best to keep my life sane. I'm trying to make sure that I'm as effective as I can be. Both are at their best, but somehow that communication gets messed up. Okay. Now, Jerry Levin, his tongue has been bitten off at the end. Okay. It's not as long as it used to be because now tell us about exactly how you develop this patience and what does it look like?
Well, I don't know. I never really understood or tried to solve how a person could be patient, but I do know that it takes patience in order to understand what is transpiring. I guess is from years and years and years of listening to customers complain and trying to solve those problems. So I have had plenty of practice. So the only thing is that I'm fortunate so far that Barbara is not what you might call adamant against anything. She will take the time and feel agitated for the simple reason that she can't remember it. And if you tell her something, 5 minutes later, she's asking the same question over again. You have to learn, okay, to tell her again. And then she'll ask it 5 minutes later, she's going to ask you the same question again. So he said, I already told you that 2 or 3 times. Well,
that doesn't work so good.
That doesn't work at all. That doesn't work at all. So my daughter, Nancy and Bob, they bought us like a chalkboard, and what they wanted me to do is write it down and say, okay. She asked again, look at the chalkboard, and you see. A lot of times is when she gets up in the morning, what are we going to do today? That's the first thing. What are we doing today? And you can go through what's going to happen today. And 10 minutes later, she said, well, what are we going to do today? And that's where the problems are.
He used a word early on when we were talking, and he said, you have to learn to finesse it. Now, finesse is an interesting concept here. It means there's a softness, but also there is an effectiveness to a finesse. You have a goal, and that goal is to try to either distract the patient or get them onto something else that takes this loop of what are we doing today? What are we doing today? What are we doing today? It's probably one of the hardest things that we have to deal with. How are we doing on time? Okay. I want to make a couple of points. We develop character traits in our life all the way through to allow us to live up to the demands that life makes on us. But the character traits that make us successful as an entrepreneur and as a successful businessman, and even as a young father raising children, is completely different than the character traits that we need when we are old, after our careers and we're in retirement. And then also a completely different set comes up when we're not only retired, but we're a caregiver. But there's some strong undercurrents of character that are required to make successful in any of these stages. And here, I want you to see that one is we had a young man who was 19 years old, who was crucial in the World War II and in performing the role as a flight engineer, a crucial role in a B-24.
Right.
Okay. So also, so he had to say to everyone, and he had to say to himself, what is it that I need to do to be successful to protect these men that are in the back of this B-24 or to get us back? What is it I have to do? Right? The second thing is that his father asked him to leave Chapel Hill, probably one of the greatest places on the planet when you're 24 years old, to come back because I'm sick and I need for you to run my family business. So what allows or helps a person do that? And that's devotion to your family. My family is the most important thing. And I can show you some amazing pictures here in this book about this marvelous family that have been sort of immersed in love. And the last thing is that it's will, is saying that this is who I am. These are the cards I've been dealt. Now, I would like those cards to be different. I would like those cards to be that this is all wonderful for the rest of my life. But that's not the cards that we get. We get the ones where we say we'd like a redeal. And unfortunately, no redeals. So I want the theme to go out today to all the caregivers that this strength that you have in your life and how you've lived your life is preparing you for this role as caregiver. But there's been nothing in this man's life that's been as hard, it's required as much change as being a caregiver. And he has done a marvelous job. I want to talk just a little bit about COVID. Tell me about Barbara 2 years ago and the Barbara that we're dealing with today. Do you feel like COVID has hurt us?
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. I think that being that we've been kind of might say quarantined.
Isolated, yeah.
Isolated, that's the word, isolated. We've been isolated, and things that we did enjoy with our friends there at Cypress and the people that we have become real good friends with, we no longer see them. So it makes a difference that she doesn't get to have that interplay with them as often as she needs. And then now it's a little bit strange for her. She can remember them after she sees them. If you mention her name, a noun, before, she won't remember who they are.
But when she sees them,
that's a different story.
Right. One of the things about Barbara, her social skills are still very much intact. One of the things, and everybody that is a patient of ours, or especially a caregiver, has heard me talk about this ad nauseum. COVID has hurt one demographic in our practice out of proportion to any other. Surprisingly, it's our highly functioning patients with mild memory loss. And what has that taught us? It's taught us that seemingly non-essential interactions with people, going to the hairdresser, going out to dinner, talking to a waitress, going to a bar, having a drink. I went to UVA, you got to give me a break on that one. But those seemingly non-essential, going to Blackhawk Hardware and having a guy take you over there to buy a couple of screws and just start talking to him. Now, if there's anybody or two people on this earth that are good at that, who love other people, it's Jerry and Barbara Levin. And so Barbara has been hurt by that because that confidence that she has in social situations, now the context is a little bit changed. And so she's not as confident. And anxiety, social anxiety comes in. And sometimes she'll say, I don't want to go. I don't want to do it, because she's afraid she's going to be put into a situation where she's going to feel anxious. Okay, we're going to, first of all, I appreciate you coming in. I knew this was going to be fun. We got this extraordinary man who is really good at this. And he's learned, he's become better at it. And the bottom line here is that I'm always fascinated by the concept of wonder, of we're surrounded by magic, we're surrounded by magical people, extraordinary people. And what wonder means is it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And being a caregiver and being able to keep that kindness, that emotional attachment to the patient, that is doing something extraordinary. So we're going to continue this series, and we'll have some other extraordinary people, but today is really special for me. Thank you. All right. Questions?
We have about 15 minutes left. So if anybody has any questions, you can unmute your microphone and ask them with your voice, or if you'd prefer to type them in the chat box, we're happy to read them for you. Questions for Dr. Edwards or for Jerry Levin?
I think you did a good job. I think you did a good job. That was a good day for you. You didn't have a shot with her, I don't think. God. This is the one that's kind of scary. Where's that one where you were dressed up like a, oh my God. Any questions? Come on, don't be bashful. Look at her.
This is Nancy Kipnis. Hi. Jerry Levin's my dad, and I just want to say I'm very proud. Linda Goldsmith is also on here.
Nancy, you should be proud. He's a good guy.
Yeah. So he's taking care of our mom. It's hard to watch. It's hard to I'm sure everyone, all the caregivers out there know. It's hard to watch your mom decline. But Dad has been doing such a great job. We are so proud of him. And we want to help as much as possible. So any suggestions anyone has, to help us help him. Sometimes we do think he solves the problems too well, and we want to help him help her. And sometimes that's hard for us, not to be able to help as much as he won't let us help as much as we want to. So, anyway,
one of the things I would say is that you already do this, because he's told me several times that some of the best times they have, and when Barbara's at her best, is when she's around her grandchildren and she is with the family. One of the things it's important for everybody to realize that it doesn't matter that the patient may not remember tomorrow what they did today, but that they had in that moment, they felt the love and the connections to their families. And Jerry has told me that the times that they're at their best is when they're with you, Nancy, and the other members of your family having dinner or over at someone's house. They're in the swimming pool or whatever it is with the grandchildren. But that's how you make this work, is that they just come and they just part, not necessarily anything. There's a great Linda, not Linda Ronstadt, who used to be married to Glenn Campbell, or who was, what was her name? Anybody know country music here? Tanya Tucker, who's I'm thinking of. Come on. Tanya Tucker has a great song, and it's about children and interacting with their families. And she sings this song, and one of the lines is, "If there's love in those flowers, bring them on. Don't wait until my body's cold and gone." So you're already doing it, Nancy, but for everyone else, it's really important. Just those simple things. Let's go eat a pizza. Let's just drink a beer. Just keeping their lives as simple as. And everybody, this man is 97 years old. 97. My God.
That's a big deal.
Not for you, but, All right. Any other questions?
Chuck, Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Chris Jones. And
Hey, Chris.
in talking to some caregivers, one of the things there's a theme about feeling so sad when the person that they once knew becomes somebody who is no longer how they remember that person. Gregarious, loving, kind, fun to be with. And there's almost a grieving of that loss. And I wondered if Jerry experienced that. And if he did, how did he cope with that?
She was saying as Barbara changed and started to move away, did you sort of mourn the loss of who Barbara was?
No. I don't look at it that way. I think that I have to cope with what is there. I can't substitute what is not there. So I just have to go with what she's doing, or what it gives her pleasure, or what she loves, like you said, with family, which she does, and she loves friends. But I don't feel like that I do anything extraordinary, except to give her compassion and being able to understand what she's going through and solve it the best way I know how, or with together solve it the best we know how.
Chris, I think that's really important. And I think that you and I have talked about it's almost like that the patients, the caregivers start to have an abnormal grief reaction
Right.
long before the patient is gone.
Right.
And the anxiety produces the obsession. Anxiety produces the obsession of what they've lost and what they can't get back.
Right.
And in the early and mid stages, there's enough left to still make a life out of. Now, is it perfect? No. Is it sad? Yes. Is it tragic? But focusing on what we have left and not what we've lost is healthy. Right?
Okay.
Hard, but healthy. But also, I make the point, and you already know this because you were really good at this, is that as the patient is moving away from you, okay, it can no longer fulfill that role as a spouse, as a friend, as a lover, or whatever, and that roles change. Two things have to happen. We have to accept the new role of them and appreciate who they are now. And second of all, we've got to fill that vacuum with other parts of our life. These may not be people that are related to, or it may be children, but most of the time it is new pursuits or developing friendships, deep, not horizontal, but deep with people that not only will listen to you, but you'll get to listen to them. And so you develop these new relationships and you realize that these are keeping me healthy. And that's what COVID prevented us from doing.
Right, right.
The only suicide that we've had to intervene on has been with a caregiver, not with a patient.
Right.
So those deep appreciation of who, and they say, well, how do I do that? How do I make friends of that significance? And it starts with your being the person that you would want to be a friend to you. And you start with that and you make yourself vulnerable. I don't have all the answers. I don't, and you fill that vacuum full of hopefully a few people that can understand who you are, what you're going through.
Good. Thank you. That was very helpful.
It's 5 o'clock. Is it Miller time?
It's just about Miller time. We have we have one question that's come through the chat, Dr. Edwards. Can you speak to how you should best handle irrational outbursts?
How do you do it? Okay, one of the things is that Barbara would have these moments of despondency. She would be crying and stuff. How did you handle that?
Well, the best thing that I know is that when that happens, I try to change the subject or try to change the whole attitude of whatever that gave her the problem or that upset her. And I try to justify it the best I know how with her and try to tell her that, okay, if that's bothered you, let's do something else too. Let's get into something else. I notice that the biggest thing is that she doesn't have the capabilities now of reading and remembering, and I know that's a problem. And I know that she used to crochet. She used to needlepoint. She did beautiful needlepoints. I mean, gorgeous. And she did it for her grandchildren and did it for the baby's room and stuff like that. She don't do that anymore. And the reason why, I think, is that she can't remember. And so therefore she doesn't want to attempt it. I tried to get her to do some knitting because I thought, well, Barbara, you could do little caps for kids in the hospital. And it's simple. But she said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Never happened. Never happened.
That's that apathy that comes from the vascular dementia.
One question.
Good answer there. I can't improve on that. Yes.
Doug, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, my dad was flew B-24 bombers. Just curious what bomb group he was in.
Wants to know. He says his father flew B-24.
Oh, yeah.
He might have been in your group. He wants to know what group
He
you were
was-
in.
I was the 484th bomb group. 484.
He was a 485th, I think.
We were,
Yeah, they
we
were.
were close together. We didn't fly together, but we, the 484th and the 461st, we flew off the same field. But the 485th, you know, we had a reunion, and the 485th was included in the last reunions.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, he flew down to South Africa and then over and got shot down over Budapest, Hungary. Was a prisoner of war for almost a year.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That is, and two, we have a 484th reunion, which we just went to. Nancy and Bob went with us, and Barbara and I went, and it was a great reunion.
How many people were there?
Well, actually, there was only 6 vets there because it used to be 30, 35, so on. But
There's still 6 of you guys left?
6, there's more left, but a lot of them can't get there physically or mentally, maybe, but mostly physically. So there's more than those 6 of us. But it's been fun. I mean, it's been great. It's been,
Wow.
and that reunion, we talked and discussed what happened to us or what happened to different bomb groups or different bombing runs, and it's fun. It's really fun. And the people, the last reunion we had was over 300 people, and how do you get 300 people? It was children and uncles and aunts that respect or think about their loved ones that flew and that are no longer there any longer, but they come to the reunion.
Wow, that legacy.
It's really beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Wow.
There was,
Okay.
there was one question that came up. I think there was one more question.
There's one question in the chat right now. If we have time to do this one,
Do I hit it? Do I hit the chat?
I can read it to you. Does chiropractic treatment help with memory?
No.
There you have it. Okay.
I'd like to say something. Can I?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, well, Dr. Edwards, I am writing a book, and it's called The Last I Love You, and it's a journey through caregiving, through Alzheimer's and COVID. So I'm probably going to be popping in, and I'm taking notes. And
Well, Susan, it's good to see you. COVID took him out, and
part of it, yes, part.
And what happened? Well, but it was exactly one of the things that we saw early, and you taught me this, was that the patients during COVID that were in independent living in these CCRCs, who were living alone, 70% are in the wrong slot. They should have more care. So it took the CCRCs a while to realize that these people are not independent. They're not taking the medication. They weren't drinking fluid. They weren't eating. They were bringing food, and the staff was told, just put it down and ring the bell. And then when you come back and get it, don't look at the food because you'll get the virus. And so it was a disaster. And so
He was only in the care facility for 24 days.
I remember we went through that, didn't we?
Yes, you walked
So
me
how are
through.
things in did you ever, Westchester, Pennsylvania, right?
My daughter lives in Westchester. I'm in Valley Township
You told me you couldn't afford Westchester.
I could so. My daughter found this house for me. So I'm fine.
Okay, anybody else? Last one, any other questions?
I just want to say I'm Linda. Jerry's another daughter of his, and we are so proud of what he does with my mom. It does take a lot of patience, and we try to step in, but he is just doing amazing. And now that COVID is subsiding a little bit. We hope to get together with more family functions. We were trying to protect them, but we will get together, Dad.
It's actually COVID is over, guys.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
COVID's over. We're over it. It's killing us, and it's not the virus. Damn it.
All right, thank you.
Oh, wait a minute, you got one more question?
One question I got is that, we get a lot of literature that's telling us that these pills will bring back brain and bring back blood and bring back flow and the chance that your brains will be able to function again, or at least the pills that they recommend has been authorized and sanctioned by different people, and how wonderful and great it is. I get those all the time, and I wonder, is it just advertising?
Yes, actually, you can count on this, okay? You can count on this. If there's a pill that can make your brain function better, I'm going to know about it, and I'm going to make sure you get it. But if someone else tells you that and they say, here, you send us $62 and we're going to send you some pills that are going to make your brain better, save the $62. Buy a fifth of Jack Daniels, but don't take the damn pill. Thank you, Jerry. All right, we'll see y'all.
Excellent advice. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Edwards and Jerry. What an inspiring talk. That was exactly what so many of us needed to hear. I'm going to turn this over for a moment to Janet LeClaire, our Executive Director, for a quick thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. And thank you, Dr. Edwards and Jerry. What a great session. Just want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Southminster Embrace Care, who've been terrific partners to us. We have Thomas Brewer, who's our Director of Business Development, just to say a couple of words about Southminster. So, Thomas?
Hold on. I got to put him up here.
Yeah, I'm here.
There he is.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. That was a great presentation. Thanks, Dr. Edwards. Thanks, Mr. Levin. We're happy to support this series. Just quickly about myself, I'm with Embrace Care. We are a home care provider. We provide home care in the home as well as caregiver support here in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. We are based out of Southminster, which is a CCRC here in the area, but we're excited to be partners with Memory and Movement Charlotte and looking forward to being part of the future webinars as well.
Thank you so much, Thomas. And thank you all for joining us. I hope that you'll join us once again next month on March. It'll be March, right? Yes, March 22nd. Our next topic will be called Going Public with a Diagnosis, and it will be featuring a patient, an attorney, and an HR leader discussing the pros and cons and the great relief that comes with coming clean about your diagnosis at work and all the anxiety that surrounds that decision. So I hope that we'll see you there. An invitation will go out by email in a few weeks, and it should be on our website tomorrow. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Have a good night.